Welcome. Today we're just going to chat a little bit about Hill Day and these students' experiences during Hill Day. So my name is Alicia.
Veronica.
Kelsey.
Indiana.
Welcome. So my first question for you is, why did you choose to participate in Hill Day?
I chose to participate because being new to the program, I thought it would be a great opportunity for networking, meeting students in the upper cohort, as well as just becoming more familiar with legislative acts in regards to occupational therapy. I didn't know too much about it at all, really, so I thought that when the opportunity was given, writing the paper and submitting it to hopefully have a chance to broaden my horizons in this aspect would be a very beneficial thing for me to do.
Awesome.
Mine's very similar to Deanna's. Since I was a new occupational therapy student, I thought it'd be a great idea to kind of see what else I could do with occupational therapy. I've worked in the field for 2 years as a technician, and I had never really seen how the politics worked. I just heard about the changes being made, so I wanted to see what I could do in the future to make a difference in occupational therapy.
It was actually my second time going to Hill Day, and I'm very passionate about advocacy and I guess just promoting our profession and just letting the word get out there. You know, there's size in numbers and power in numbers, and just being able to advocate for myself, for my profession, and for the future of our profession, and that's the driving force behind Hill Day in general.
Awesome. So describe to us what takes place during Hill Day.
So you network with a variety of students and practicing occupational therapists from all over, which again, I had no idea what to expect going in to Hill Day, but just forming those relationships and seeing how, just seeing the effects that occupational therapists can have on the government and people in everyday living situations. And it was just really cool to see people from all over coming together to advocate for the profession and these acts that will be affecting us in the future as occupational therapists, and currently with practicing occupational therapists and professors. We had our 2 excellent professors with us.
I mean, what's great about it is that we get to meet with our legislators, and we, like Deanna said, we get to advocate for our profession. We get to explain what our profession does, because a lot of the time they are not aware that we exist and what our profession does.
That's true.
So being able to be there in person, to put a name to the face and say, this is what occupational therapy is, this is how we can benefit the general population, and just having that interaction with them.
And it's really cool that you get to actually go into the offices and be face to face with actual politicians, just is something that I never thought I'd ever do. So that's part of Hill Day that stood out to me.
That's awesome. So describe one of the actions currently taking place by AOTA that was most interesting to you.
My favorite would be the Medicare Home Health Flexibility Act. And this act, as we all know, physicians and PTs open cases and refer them over to us. We can't open the cases ourselves, which can be problematic in certain situations. And in Catco's office, I brought up this act because I can relate to it personally with my grandmother who lives out in the boonies. She's aging, healthily so far, but she's getting to that older point where she might need some assistance. So there's a 48-hour time hold within, it's a time frame for when you can open cases. So that might be too short for a lot of these people who are living in rural areas. So as occupational therapists, it would be so beneficial to have the opportunity to open cases. That way we can give people treatment as soon as they need it, because you don't know, these people are all varying depending on their situation, stage of life, living environment. So we're really pushing this act to hopefully see some change in that aspect. But it was a really cool thing to get in there and let your voice be heard. It might not be directly to the legislator, but just to experience that and get out of your comfort zone and learn something new. It's a really rewarding feeling.
The most interesting act to me that we lobbied for was the Mental Health Professionals Workforce Loan Repayment Act. And that act works to do a loan repayment for occupational therapists who are going into an underserved area in a mental health field. As we know, occupational therapy started out in mental health, and our program really emphasizes mental health. So it was a really meaningful act, and it was interesting to see how we could possibly have a loan repayment in the future.
And the act that I really enjoyed was the Allied Workforce Diversity Act. Not as big of a mouthful as that one, but and basically what this act proposes is it's basically getting scholarships and grants provided to accredited education programs so that they may recruit more diverse populations, because if you look at the occupational therapy field, it's not as diverse as it should be. So this would sort of encourage more populations from diverse backgrounds, from minorities, to come into the program and be able to, do the program and get the education they deserve.
So I have a follow-up question for you though. Why do you think it's important to add diversity into the field of occupational therapy?
I believe it's important just because, we are working with so many different populations, so many people across different lifespans, and so many diversities from different backgrounds, from different cultural backgrounds. So having that importance, having somebody who, relates to the patient on a different level, on the same level, I believe, promotes a better use of, their therapy use of self, and you have that cultural competence component too, where they're able to relate to the patient more. So just it's overall encompassing. We are a holistic field. We are, overall we promote so much.
Right.
So just having that diversity aspect to it just adds to why we are great practitioners.
Have that reflected in our field.
And there's studies that show that there is a better outcome when you're working with someone of your same culture.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what ways can people who have not attended Hill Day learn more about this, and how can they get involved?
For starters, just going online, going on the AOTA website, all the acts are listed. You can read more in-depth information about those, get updates, and see how those acts are progressing, if they are being passed, or what level they're stuck on, and just seeing and monitoring where those steps are going from here. And that's how it started for us, just being familiar with the acts, so we know what we're talking about when we go in there to represent occupational therapy in our school. But there's so many things you can do. You don't have to be on the Hill, but just being informed of what's going on in real life situations, because as future practicing occupational therapists, these acts have the potential to affect us in a positive or a negative way. And so being prepared and knowledgeable about those acts and what can occur in the future is essential, I think, to being, a decent occupational therapist.
I mean, just going off of that, you said it affects us as clinicians, but it also affects the populations that we serve as well. So just being able to, promote ourselves as a profession, but also, doing it for the benefit of our clients and our patients.
Definitely.
But AOTA also does a virtual Hill Day, which you're able to, if you're not able to make it to the Hill, like Deanna said, because if it's in Washington DC, people are coming from all over, you're able to participate online, and it basically gives you resources and lists of, like she said, the bills that are in motion right now, and a way to contact your legislator, your point of contact, and just being up to date on everything.
And another great way to get involved is to write a letter to your local congressman. I think they have to respond back to you, and they most likely will respond back to you with positive reviews. So it's a way to get your field out there, your name out there, and kind of build a relationship with your local congressman.
Definitely. So what is the biggest challenge to getting this legislation passed?
I think the biggest challenge is, like I mentioned earlier, is the fact that a lot of people don't know what occupational therapy is. So just going over that hurdle and having to explain, are you familiar with occupational therapy? Do you know what it is? Most of them are not familiar with it. So having to explain what it is, establish ourselves as a profession. It's like, hey, we exist and this is what we do. And then this is how we get help through the enactment of these bills. So I think that is the biggest challenge, in legislature, but also just in real life is just establishing ourselves as a profession and making it known exactly what we do and how we can best serve the population.
Going off of what Veronica said, that's exactly correct. But a lot of these congressmen, you know, they have so many other things on their minds, their daily schedule, this going on, and, you know, just things that are going on in the country, that sometimes when they have us there, you know, we just kind of put on the back burner. You know, occupational therapy, like she said, they don't really know what it is or what it consists of. So even though we go and we let our voices be heard, you know, we might not see any action for, you know, months or years in regards to the acts, which is sad, but all we can do is all we can do and keep pushing and advocating, and then hopefully over time change will be implemented.
What I did find positive though is that the assistants that we talked to, we always asked before we started talking about the bills that they knew what occupational therapy was, and most of them had a story about their grandparents or their family members, so they did have a relative idea of what occupational therapy was, and I thought that was really positive to hear.
Right. And then another thing that I find that at least this semester that we've learned is to become involved in policymaking, and, you know, occupational therapists to kind of step outside that comfort zone of traditional areas of practice, and, you know, maybe even become, you know, have a position in the government, you know, become a policymaker, and that way for those who may find, you know, putting OT on the back burner, if you are an occupational therapist in that position, you would find that as a primary, you know, a primary thing to do, a priority, thank you.
Yeah.
So that could also be one of the avenues to making this less of a barrier, so.
Well said.
So what is one of the biggest takeaways that you guys got from participating in Hill Day?
I love being with these lovely individuals and my professors. I think we really bonded and had a great time.
Yeah.
And the whole atmosphere of being in DC was really something special. And just, you know, being new to the program and having such a great experience, it's something that I'm definitely interested in doing again, and continuing to learn about and advocate.
What I was most surprised about is when we walked in for our very first meeting with only half of the attending occupational therapists and students of the whole group. There were hundreds of people there, and it was just so powerful to see so many occupational therapists and students that care about the policies, and there's a large number of people that want to be involved, and it was just great to see.
Yeah. And just going off of that, I mean, you know, there is power in numbers, like I said earlier, and just the biggest takeaway is that, you know, advocate. Just,
Right.
you know, get yourself out there, you know, contact your congressman, participate in Hill Day, get in any type of, I guess, situation where you find yourself advocating for your profession, because, you know, as long as we keep pushing the envelope, as long as we keep advocating, that's the only way that we'll sort of be able to, you know, get our profession out there on the map, and people will know who we are and what we do.
Right, and what's awesome about advocacy is that there's so many levels to it. You know, you mentioned going online and just being familiar with it. So, you know, when you're in the field, you have an idea of what's going on. You know, you might not have to be a participant in Hill Day and go face to face, you know, or be a policymaker. There's so many different levels of involvement with this, whether it's just being a person in the room of hundreds of people and being affected by that. You know, I think there's so many levels that you can get involved, whether you're, you know, one-on-one, it depends on your comfort level, but there's many things that we could do to get involved here. So thank you so much for sharing the information, and I hope this encourages more people and to become involved and become aware, and also just I hope you learned something today. So thank you.